supersonic, 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 supersonic.
Well, hello, Cosey.
Hello
Good
again.
to see you. How are you doing?
Not bad.
Good. So this is a bit exciting. International Women's Day. We're having another chat, which is a bit of an honour for me. So,
It's on
yeah.
both. Come on.
Wow. But we first met when we did an interview. Well, I interviewed you for Radio 4 on the artists.
Yeah.
And that interview, what really struck me and what a lot of people sort of hooked into when you were saying about liberation, women's liberation, and how important that is, and that we fight a lot for equality, for equal pay, but actually the most important thing is for our liberation. Do you want to sort of expand on that a little bit?
Well, it's just, if I think about, because everybody links women's liberation with feminism, quite rightly. But if I think back to when it all started off, it was women's liberation, marches, and it was about that, because that's basically what it's about. And then everything else that follows that, the whole equality issue and everything. And with International Women's Day in particular, I think it's a really good thing. But then again, it kind of saddens me that we have to have it. We shouldn't. Looking into it, like the 21st year of the 21st century, we're having International Women's Day.
Yeah.
We're having to signal that we're still around. Hi, there's women here. We'd quite like to, and not even. It's almost not like an apology. We shouldn't need to apologise at all, because we're all in this together. But as far as liberation goes, I think it's really important, and it reflects the society we're in as well, that you have to kind of think about just how far people do feel liberated.
Yeah.
And with International Women's Day, that issue comes up. It's highlighted because we have to have an International Women's Day. But liberation, I think, is the key to everything, because we have to feel that we're free to be who we are and to have our own choices and do what we want to do without harming anyone else.
Yeah.
And that is the key to it all for me, is that I do feel free to be who I am and to express myself how I wish to. Again, like I said, without harming anybody else. There's, that's the basic thing for me with liberation.
Yeah. And it's about choice, isn't it? More than anything, more than financial or anything. It's about, we have the choice, let's say, to do what we want, express ourselves in the way we want, and like you said, without causing anybody any distress. But that is still a huge battle.
It is, yeah. On top of poverty and everything else, which restricts your choices.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just your gender alone.
Yeah.
Kind of dictates what choices you have. And
that's one of the main battles for sort of feminism and liberation is about the capitalist system, isn't it? It's all stacked against. I mean, we're seeing now, aren't we, with women, how COVID's affecting women more than men because of the general sort of workforce, the female workforce, and what they're involved in. And again, it's not about, well, it is about money, but if you haven't got money, you haven't got choice. But it's, I mean, in my profession, we're getting a lot of, when you get offered jobs, it's usually the male actor's been offered much more than the female actor. And I know people keep going, oh, we've got to battle that. But my main battle is, let's get those really interesting parts for the women and not keep giving them to the men. As I'm saying, finance is fabulous, and we should be. But I think, again, it's about stories. And the more stories we put out there, the more choice we give women. And the more experience, as I feel as artists, that's part of our job. Yeah. So with, going back to, we're talking about the younger generation, and we're talking, and obviously you're a huge influence now. It feels like so many young artists coming through now are citing you as a big influence on their work. I mean, how does that
How does it
I know
feel?
you're right.
It's
What
odd.
does that feel? I mean, be as
It feels weird. It does feel weird. I mean, I'm pleased if I've had a positive influence on people and I've inspired them. I think that's wonderful, because you need something to reassure you that you're not mad,
yeah,
that you're not so weirdly other that you should shut your mouth and go and hide away, and I've just done that because I always felt, and I always had to fight for my place, to be honest, right from being a child, that literally on a working class council housing estate, you had to fight your corner, and I think that's where it came from for me, is that I had to stand my ground, and at the same time I'm thinking, well, I don't know who I am, but I don't feel like I quite fit in, like a lot of people. And so I would just think, well, it's that time, and particularly in your teens, where you think, where are you going to fit into this world? And most people go through that. It's almost like a rite of passage in a way, is that you're trying to find where you fit in, which is more difficult when you don't actually fit in, because you dress differently and you say things that, people say, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm just talking about, so, things a little bit more philosophical than, I didn't even know that word when I was young, that I was speaking that way. But I just wanted, I kind of imagined a world that was different to the one I was in, where I did feel that I had a place and that I could express myself. And I suppose that's what drove me from being a child, is that I was constantly being told to, sit down, shut up, and all the rest of it. And that's why I don't like it nowadays when people are told to shut up and sit down and don't make a fuss.
yeah,
It's not the way to treat one another, and also it suppresses your right to be who you are,
yeah,
and your right to express your feelings, which are really important because they're the result of other people around you, basically. So it's really important that you communicate with one another, because that's what makes the society that you live in. And so yeah, I think that's by living out my life how I felt I needed to feel not even good about myself, but just that I felt okay, that my existence was good and happy and positive. And that's how my art began, right from being a child, I suppose, is that I poured myself into drawing, painting, in all that kind of thing. And then music as well became a big thing for me. And that's how my life as an artist began. And it was driven by having to cope with being considered as a nuisance, I suppose. I was a bit of a nuisance. Um, so it's nice to think that that what I've done just to be who I am and feel good about who I am and question who I am, obviously, because that's always going on throughout your life. I'm always questioning things. Um, it's nice to know that people have found that inspiring in some way. But I didn't sort of sit down as a kid or even as a teenager and think, right, what can I do as a career that will inspire other people? You'll have a positive influence. That didn't happen in my day, that just
yeah,
wasn't a thing that you discussed even. I just got on with it.
yeah, yeah. But that's the biggest influence, isn't it? I think the artists who they're so true to themselves and follow their own path end up, don't they, being the some of the biggest influential characters on people, because that's, especially for a woman as well, to see another woman who was unapologetic, and as I always say about you, were completely selfless, in what they created. But and interesting, I mean, I don't know, but I always think your influences. I can't. What were your influence? Who were there any women who influenced you?
That's always a difficult question
Yeah,
for me, because I can't think of anyone.
yeah,
As the situation I was in, I wasn't in a position where I was given a lot of information about artists of the past, Frida Kahlo, nothing, never came up.
Yeah.
Was never on my radar. All those things emerged as I started looking.
Yeah.
So that's the strange thing, is that when I think about it, and people say who influenced you, even with music and things, I think it was just a conglomeration of my life,
Yeah.
and what I had to do to make it feel good for me. And the overriding thing I've also found is that I didn't have a sense of being female.
Yeah.
I wasn't overly female because I wasn't treated as a girl most of my childhood, and my main friends on the estate were boys, and I don't know why. I don't know why I had such a draw to boys, and it wasn't always a sexual thing. It was sometimes, but I just found them a little bit more up for it than the girls, you know.
Yeah.
Even when I had my cousin come and see us before my dad fell out with everybody, when they came to see us, we'd swap toys, and he'd play with my dolls, and I'd play with his cars on the stairs. And I never even thought about it until later, because I think someone mentioned it as they came along and saw us. They said, "What are you playing with dolls for?" I won't say his name, to my cousin, you know. And I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't understand. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what they said to him. And so, right from an early age, I think I didn't really think I was separate to anyone else, and that's why my attitude going out there, I suppose, was already primed for me to go to that. I had the right to do that.
Yeah.
Never even thought about it as a right, even.
But it's interesting you say that, because that felt for me as well, getting into what I was into. I was hanging about with the boys on the estate because the music they were into, the literature they were reading, you know, I got introduced to, 13, 14, Frank Zappa, Throbbing Gristle, that, and the girls, I'm sure things have changed, and it was just, I don't know, I'm, 46 now, so, and I don't resent that it was boys that, introduced me to it, but I sort of think, oh damn, I wish it wasn't so, in a way. I wish it was, and obviously then as you go through life, you find like-minded females, and once I started going to college, and then I found people who, women who were into the same things I were into. But I did feel, and I think as well, it was that working class sort of education that you didn't get at school. I didn't learn about, like you said, we didn't learn about artists at school. I didn't, you learn great literature, nothing like, so I got more of a highbrow education, sat getting stoned in a room, after a night out.
Yeah.
I learned most of my things at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
Having debates with and it's seen as being up to no good, and actually had a better education and those sort of Saturday night, Sunday through to Sunday mornings than I ever had at school. And it does, I don't know, I mean, I always think Manchester, and I know Hull and everyone has that, and I think those more, well, all cities are working class, what am I talking about? But, you look at sort of, but again, it sort of seems the male figures seem to push to the front, but I think that's because sometimes they shouted the loudest. I always get annoyed with Manchester because it's still, it's still, the history still feels it was a very male dominated music art scene when it wasn't. But I suppose the women had a bigger time coming through. But with you were the, and people call you the godmother and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's nonsense, because you were the originator, weren't you? Like I said, when you look at it, you go, well, who could you have been influenced from? Because you seem to me one of the few artists who created something very much from your own acorn. You know what I mean?
I think in a lot of ways, you say selfless, but it was so much about driven by me, my inner self, if you like, and so I was often isolating myself,
Right?
and just sitting contemplating, and I think it came from that, trying to make sense of of what I felt, you know, and because I was on my own a lot. Both my parents worked, and when I wasn't with my best friend Les, who just lived up the street, um, I was just on my own. Or with my sister, who used to, you know, she had to look after me, and she's only like 18 months older than me. So I spent so much time on my own that I was like I mean, my dad used to say stop daydreaming, but I used to daydream all the time, you know, like just thinking out into the world, wondering what was ahead, basically, and wishing I was there already. And a lot of times, yeah. And many of my friends were into just, you know, like most girls of my generation, getting engaged and getting married and settling down. It was only like a handful that weren't into that. And the ones that I really connected with they must have been up to 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
But their attitude to life and what they were talking about, like you said, when you sat around stoned and talking about putting the world to rights, basically, you know, don't like this, don't like that. What about this? Have you heard of this artist, this musician? Their music's great. They're now to tell people about what's going on. And it was that getting out there and spreading the word almost.
Yeah.
And my friends that were older than me were like that. And they were the ones that I was more or less latched onto, and I left the others behind.
Yeah. You were saying about, you know, spending a lot of time on your own. And did you ever sort of feel lonely in that aspect of what you were, you know, the way you were viewing the world?
Yeah, I did. In fact, my friend Les has mentioned it a couple of times in the last year or two, not because of COVID, just as we're talking on the phone. And he said, you know, I think when you used to get on the last bus, and he said, I remember seeing you come back on the last bus on the upper deck. And he said, looking really depressed. I said, I know, I used to, just for something to do, because I didn't have any friends at that point. They'd all moved on to other things. I was homeless, well, staying at Leslie's house, thankfully. His mum took me in. And for something to do, to feel that I still was part of the world, I would get the last bus that would go into town and then back home again, just to see what everyone else was doing. You know, and I'd think, well, why don't I feel part of this? Why can't I connect with it as being the way to live and what life is about? I just couldn't. I just couldn't. And I think that was the lowest point for me. And then with Les there to help me, it was fine. I got through it somehow. I found somewhere to live, and then I moved in to the commune, and I was with older people who talked about things I was interested in, and I listened to music like you said, 2, 3 in the morning. I wasn't stoned at that point. I've gone through that phase, but yeah, they were all talking about, you know, human rights across the world, not just in the UK, and all those more interesting aspects of the world at large, which is what I think what we have to think about.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't be so insular.
Yeah. No. And then moving forward now to, obviously you've got, I mean, I know it's not gone into production yet, but how does it feel that you're going to have a film?
Oh, goodness. I don't know yet until it happens. It's going to be strange, I think. Well, the process has already started, so I've seen some of the casting tapes, and that again was, you know, when you're talking about influence and people saying that they were influenced by me. So that's been, yeah, right there in front of me. I've witnessed it, and like I said, I just don't know how I feel about that. But I'm pleased if it's a really positive thing for people.
Yeah.
Really pleased that I can have done what I did in my life, and I'm still continuing to be like that. It's not over by any means, you know, my work. I'm still like going nuts at it, basically. Not literally, but you know, I'm really busy. And I think if by doing that people can come on board and get to express themselves in a similar way to me, not in literally similar, but with the same approach and attitude, I think yeah, I think job done in my life when I've gone. I feel that I'll have left something there that people can take forward and do something really good with it.
Yeah, well, and they're doing that now. I mean, that's the thing. You're still, well, of course, you're not going anywhere. But it's still. But to see that in your lifetime as well, that must.
Yeah, I think that's a privilege, and that I find it hard to yeah, I find it hard to express how I feel about it. I'm really pleased. But I think when it gets to making the film and I see someone acting me, that'll be really strange. I think I'll have to do a mind flip in some way. Don't you think? I mean, as an actor, how would that be for you if you were to play me?
How would that be? Well, yes. I think sometimes if you know somebody, that's sort of harder but it's hard to I've done quite a few of, sort of factual dramas where I've played real life people, and the pressure is quite. You do feel a pressure. I mean, some of the people I've played have not been sort of widely known. Played John Le Measure's John Le Measure's, and even Myra Hindley. In a way, people obviously she's in the psyche, but people didn't really know how she spoke or moved unless you really. So in some ways, that gave you freedom. But I always say to actors, you can only give your impression of that and take from that each person what. And and I think we've all got so many different personalities within us that I'd never sort of pick somebody up and go, there's nothing I can ever connect with there. You'll always find something, but it's hard. But then as well, it's sometimes it's my favourite sort of form of acting because you've got sort of endless research.
Well, when you did Nico, how was that?
Yeah.
Was that difficult?
Well, that was interesting because we decided quite early on not to do a biop because, so it was more of Nico. It was an essence of Nico.
Yeah.
But yeah, even so, you go places to even, I mean, it's not like I stood on stage and did a monologue as Nico. It was about how an artist channels, as an actor, you channel, which I think you do. There's a spiritual element to it. I know for me, I think it was about how I channeled Nico. But you do go to those places and you start to, I don't know, become, but also the dark elements that have happened to people, you can't help but get plunged into. And it does leave a residue. Definitely when you've been somewhere, because in your imagination, you go to those places. And on top of what you imagine, you create your own sort of reality as well. So it can sometimes take a while to sort of come out, and you get obsessed. You do get obsessed with that person. I get very obsessed. Even people I've played years ago, when they come up in the news or something's about them, I'm like, they're still in there.
Yeah, I can
you
imagine.
do feel a little bit of I do feel a little bit of an ownership. Not an ownership, but like they're my friends.
Yeah, even though they're not there.
Yeah, they died a long time ago. But I'm not saying Myra Hindley's my friend, but you know what I mean. There's still an element of I know that person.
Well, they've been a part of your life, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've become a part of your life.
Yeah, but it's like studying something. You study them intently, sort of intensely. So you do. Yeah, you feel like you're a bit of an authority, which on them. So
well, you sort of pick up on things like when I'm writing my book at the moment, and like with Delia Derbyshire and Marjorie Kemp, you get to know them as much as you can, like you said, because you don't know they're gone. There's no way you can get to know them, but you do get to the point where you think, well, I'd never have known that. And then you think, I'm glad I do, because if I'd written something, I'd look a right Burke, because people know certain things, and I think it's incumbent on you to actually do that much research.
Yeah,
if you're going to play someone and do them justice, if you like, and honour and respect, then you have to do your research and really go deep. You have to.
Yeah.
Especially, because they're women, you feel that obligation as well, is that I have to, look at the lives of these women through my lens in a way, even though, one's like 600 years ago and one's just, 8 years difference. I still, there's still things, connections and similarities in our lives, which, like I said, right at the beginning, International Women's Day, the issues that, from 600 years ago are still around. And I spoke to someone the other day, and it looks like there's a resurgence of what medieval women went through in some parts of the world, because we know,
Yeah.
people just say it in a phrase. It's getting medieval for women over there now, and I think if you understand what that means, you'd know the danger signals there,
Yeah.
and have more of an understanding of what women were experiencing when they're suppressed to that extent.
And did sort of working on Deal. I mean, how was that experience? I mean, was Dealey Derbyshire big? I mean, I know we're talking about it, but as you know, when have you always been a big fan?
I think with Delia it was quite different, because she was sort of like in everybody's life from the 50s, just in the music on the radio and TV. You didn't know it was Delia.
Yeah.
So she had a kind of subliminal influence on me, I think, with my dad as well, being into electronics. So I got his version of it in his blip bloop bloops as he was doing his radio building and stuff, and wiring around the house, and then Delia on the telly when I watched all these different programs, or the radio, which was still a big thing back when I was a child. We had the radio on nearly all day, because TV didn't start until you used to get children's programs, and that was it until you got the news in the evening. Didn't have all day TV. There was never 24-hour television or entertainment. And probably another reason, thinking about it, is that why I used to go daydreaming.
And the Delia film was a sort of it's Caroline Katz. It was sort of a brainchild, was it really? Did Caroline?
Yeah, it was. She'd worked on it for years.
Yeah.
And she went to an exhibition where I'd done a film. It was like my visual autobiography, really, and it had come about from doing the whole City of Culture, and she'd seen that, and I think she'd heard my music before anyway, and she came along and asked me, could she speak to me about a project she was doing, and then we got together, and it was just like, yeah, I'd love to. And then I'm thinking, what have I said? I've done a soundtrack before. I have no idea what it involves. And then, which was brilliant for me as well, because I love it when you get that sort of like your stomach sort of lurches, that you've just suddenly decided to do something you've never done before. And so it's like exciting, but also scary. And I think those moments are the best.
Yeah.
Because you know that you're going to go into something that you've never done before. And that's always fantastically exciting for me. So so Caroline, thank you, dear Caroline.
No, that's brilliant, and it's just brilliant that she's brought Delia to a wider audience.
Yeah, and the fact that we worked so closely together on it was wonderful. We seem to have an intuitive understanding of Delia that kind of matched each other's. So everything we sort of, and I'd say so and so about her one particular scene, and she'd go, exactly, that's exact, So we were sort of riding on this crest of a wave all the way through, which was never the experience I expected, but it was an absolute bonus and a gift, to be honest.
Yeah.
And everything seemed to just like flow so readily about the music. I mean, I knew how intense the work was for film, well, because of acting and doing films. It's a really heavy schedule and involves so much. And I wasn't involved with that, obviously, but to be able to give her the music, because I gave her some of the music as she went along and did the film as well, so that the mood was enhanced a little bit visually by what I was doing. So there was this wonderful sort of symbiotic relationship that we had with Delia. Like you said, you get to know her and feel her and sense her through the music, as well as her history, which Caroline was covering about her situation in life, and that was just amazing for me. And I obviously hadn't finished with her because I'd started writing the book. You see, there's Delia. She's inspired me. Yeah, absolutely inspired me latterly and subliminally many years ago. Yeah.
And it's great, you know, I mean, we're talking about International Museum. I know there's Delia Derbyshire, you know, we've got now Delia Derbyshire, but again, she's become more visible.
Yeah.
Hasn't she? Which is, you know, fabulous. Because again, I didn't know. I just presumed it was obviously a bloke who did the theme tune for Doctor Who, blah, blah, blah. You know, back in the day, you just don't.
That's one of the myths that Caroline's film deals with. Yeah. About how she was, you know, not recognised for what she did, basically. The amount that she did in that respect, and what, you know, all the BBC works and stuff were sort of lauded for, was down to, a lot of it was down to Delia.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? So I've completely lost my train of thought.
I know, I wanted to ask you about your work, because when you do spoken word with Adrian.
Yeah.
How does that process begin, and what does that give to you? Because of his music is very different. I mean, normally when you think of spoken word with music, it's not usually with the background to the kind of music that Adrian did.
No. Adrian's definitely a one-off. To be honest, the process usually is Adrian writes something, says I've written something, record it. He puts it. It's very sort of. It's done quite quickly and quite simply. I mean, I first got involved with Adrian because I was on Facebook at the time. Was it Facebook? I think it was on Facebook, and I'd had this brilliant weekend. I said, I just moved back to Salford, and I've been to a Chartist event on Curzon Moor, and I've been to the Sounds of the Other City at Salford and seen Chrome Hoof. And I went, you know, what, you know, this is a weekend in Salford. Who needs any other city, sort of thing. And Adrian got in touch and went, oh, if you like Chrome Hoof, you like my music, will you come and be in a music video? And I remember meeting him on Curzon Moor, and he brought this rabbit suit. And I thought, oh, God, who is this guy? I couldn't, you know, I might get murdered and dumped in a bushing. But I'm a bit like, oh, go on, why not? It sounds fun. It sounds a bit different. It's that thing of just embracing stuff and going. So I met him and we got on, and it just turned out we had a lot in common. We started talking about the Pendle Witches and blah, 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 blah. And then Adrian said, brilliant, I've got an idea for an album. He went away and wrote it. I went over to Dean Horner, who's, you know, brilliant Dean Horner. We went over to his house, recorded it. And then the next thing, Jane Weaver's label took it on. And then he was like, oh, can you do a live show? And I was like, under no circumstances, I'm not. See, I don't, as an actor, I look at, you know, musicians and artists, like I've got, how do you do it? I still stand there going, it's not, because you're straight to the audience. I feel like there's nothing I can quite hide behind. And I suppose because I'm not singing, and I'm not singing because I can't sing, I still find it so exposing.
What, even when you've done plays? Yeah,
it's so exposing for me. I mean, and it's the discipline of musicians that I find a bit, because normally you do a play, you go into, you know, from doing a play, it's called, you know, the half's called, so you sit and you get ready, you go in early, you do a warm up, and then you get your makeup on, get your costume on, and you sit and you quickly go, oh, that bit in scene 4, better check it again and say hello to everybody, then on you go. And then they were going, right, we'll have a drink and then we'll go for a meal. And I was like, what? I need to sit and, you know, have a drink before you go on and do it's just that slightly more relaxed sort of, that took me a while to, and then a couple of times I had too many drinks before I went on because of the nerves. But
what is that lack of structure then?
Yeah, the lack of structure. Yeah. In theatre, there's a very much a sort of, but I always say I love being with that group of people, because, you know, there's Lucy and Philly, the two Lucys and Philly, well, who are sort of, in Adrian has a lot of people coming in and out of the band. And I just love the camaraderie of it.
Yeah.
Just hanging around, having a good time. It's fun. It's not, we don't take it too seriously. I suppose because we have a little bit, you know, just on the sort of margins. We're not mainstream. We're not making any money from it. So we can, you know, we take the show seriously. But yeah, having that kind of audience that you can really then connect with, respond to you, that they don't in a theatre. I mean, they'll laugh and they'll clap, but they're not shouting stuff at you, and really, the faces are right there.
Yeah, it's like you've got to account for yourself, haven't you, when you're on stage and doing a band? Yeah, it's an odd one, that. You see, I'd be the opposite.
Yeah.
Be the complete opposite. I couldn't pretend to be somebody else, because all my life I've just been me. I think that's what it is.
Well, at least that's it. It's your discipline, isn't it? It's what you've done. So to break out, to break out of it. And I still find it, I find it hard, but I do enjoy it. And once I let myself go, and if the audience, usually if it's a small venue and the audience are, just up for it, then you go, well, this is, because my whole thing about acting now is it should be like a concert. It should be like a gig. Theatre should have that atmosphere, and it is about, watching you. It's the energy, your energy that you throw over to an audience. And I think acting it's an exchange of energy. It's got to be, without saying pretentious, but something shaman-esque about it. You know what I mean?
When it's good acting and the actor has totally immersed themselves in the character and become the character, that barrier is completely vanished.
Yeah.
And then you can it's a very similar thing to when people watch music and concerts. It's that you can get into it in that way. You probably don't realise it being the actor, but when I watch anyone, I need to not even think about believing them.
Yeah.
You're just there, Yeah. I think that for me, that's a sign of good acting, if you like, and that commitment that they have to the character that they're playing, is that they become them. It is shamanesque,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's good at it. You're really good at it,
Oh, well, thank you. But, but it is about connection, isn't it? It's about energy and connection. And how much you can give. And I think some of the best actors for me might not be the most technically the best, but they're the ones who give a lot of themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll watch them and go, I'd go with you anywhere now. I'd follow you, because I feel sort of held by you, but also a bit, sometimes actually you go, oh, I don't know what you're going to do next. And that's what theatre sometimes doesn't capture like a gig does, or art is the it's getting more of that spontaneity.
Yeah.
You watch it like a football match, you go, oh, I didn't know what.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what was it like because you got involved with Natalie Sharp, Lone Taxidermist?
Yeah, that was, well, I got in touch. I'd sort of stalked Natalie on Instagram.
Naughty.
I know, and I sort of went, hi, I really like your stuff. And then sort of, at the time I was trying to get her to write an article for something that I was editing, but she was really busy. And then we sort of kept in touch. And then we went to, I was doing a gig with Adrian and Dean at the Trades. At Mal's Brilliant Trades Club. And Natalie was there. And we got a little bit, we had a few to drink. And then we decided, we realised we were big fans of Hannah Hawkswell. I don't know if you remember Hannah Hawkswell. She was they did the documentary years ago, and we were chatting about that. And then we just sort of, she said, I'm thinking of doing a project. Would you be interested in coming doing a bit on it? And I said, of course I would. Definitely. I mean, for me, I feel what I do, I try not to do too mainstream, but as an actor, sometimes, that's what pays the bills. But I'm really more drawn to more, what you'd call the alternative. It's like I always say with Adrian in the band, if I'd have met Adrian when I was probably in my teens, I probably might have not gone down this path. I'd probably, become an actor. But it was, for me at the time, I don't know. So, Natalie and, so I just love what she does.
Her work's really, really out there.
Yeah.
I love her work as well.
Yeah. Well, I know you're massive.
Yeah, it's got such an energy to it, and there's no mistaking where it's coming from,
No. And that she
coming from a really powerful, self-empowered, wonderful energy.
Well, it's what you've got. It's that. It's like with you. It's like with people like Natalie, like Elizabeth Burnouts, because it's that fascination. I think for the layperson like me to go, oh, where does that come from? Where does that that expression? And I think that's what people go with, isn't it? So fascinated by is that you create a world like we were talking before when we were kids that other people want to be part of, but sometimes can't. It's not that they can get in it, but because you create something that they wouldn't be able to manifest themselves.
We can just kind of reflect in the world, what is thrown at you.
Yeah.
And then and then it comes through you as a conduit and out there again, but in a form that's very much your own. That's how you choose to express it. And I think that's what makes Elizabeth and Natalie's work so unique.
Yeah.
Is that it comes from them. There isn't a filter of sort of like cleaning it up or, homogenizing it or making it acceptable in any way. Because the whole point of their work is that they want to express how they feel. They want people to know what it feels like to be a certain way and to speak about situations that have affected them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
It doesn't work the same way on social media.
No.
You've only got so many words to say it.
Yeah.
But
it does. It is, and it gives everybody an outlet. And it's that, like you said, about being a conduit, isn't it?
Yeah.
We need those people who don't compromise, and it's hard not to compromise. I find as an actor sometimes, sometimes I think, oh, jobs come in, and I think, oh, not quite. And then I think I'm going to have to do something sooner or later because the scripts that come through, I don't feel either not politically, but as a woman that. I think, what's this saying about a woman? Or is
but that's what we're talking about, though. You
Yeah.
have to get in there to understand,
Yeah.
what's going on. You can't stay in your own little bubble.
No.
Because that's what you're fighting against anyway. It's a huge bubble that you're fighting against.
Yeah.
There's no point in forming a very small one that just sits on its own. You have to get access and sort of like start the discussion going. So, working on what mainstream or whatever, or what you say, compromising. It's not so much a compromise as getting access to information that you shouldn't sort of like set yourself apart from the world that you're living in. Not at all.
Yeah.
I think it's important to get out there.
But it is. I have so much admiration for you and and like Natalie, and that you did. I had to find something to be a team. You know what I mean? Acting wise, I knew I wanted to express myself, but I didn't. And I was thinking, oh, I want to do music, but then I didn't. I never found. I think sometimes it's just finding your tribe as well, isn't it?
Well, I did find a tribe as such. But it was all male, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then
it's interesting.
Yeah.
But then again, I didn't feel female, so that didn't even flash up to me. Like I think I mentioned in my book that when we went to see Yellow Magic Orchestra and we went backstage to meet them, is that the one of the Japanese press sort of pushed me to one side, assuming as a woman that I wasn't in the band. I was just one of their girlfriends of, Throbbing Gristle. Obviously didn't know about Throbbing Gristle, did he? But there was that moment on the stairs. And if you see, I think there's a picture on the internet about us when we all met them. I'm right on the edge. Obviously, someone's central. But the reason I'm on the edge is because I fought my way back up the stairs to get in the bloody photograph. Wow. Sorry, I swore then, but to get in the photograph. Say again. I was just like, I was gobsmacked, and obviously, I was used to fighting my corner, so they weren't going to stop me. I think, it took me a few seconds to realise what had just happened.
Yeah.
But that was the assumption. Back in, 1980, I suppose, round about then.
It's well, and and it's not. Is it going away? Is it? This is the discussion. I don't know. I don't think
it is.
No.
I mean, something just simple like if you have a joint bank account. There was one moment. It wasn't so long ago when a check came through for me for work I'd done that got sort of transferred into the joint bank account, and they rang up Chris and asked him about it. The check was written out to me. And that was only in the last 10 years. You're sort of thinking...
Yeah.
So yeah. I've ignored that kind of thing because the best thing for me all through my life is to just not ignore it completely, but not give it a presence that would affect my life and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's basically how I got through everything, is that just to deny
Yeah.
its effect on me. It wouldn't stop me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose
Yeah.
there was a kind of silent fight going on all the way through, but keeping it at the back rather than letting it take any really big presence in my life.
Yeah. But it just feels now that there's so many sort of female artists coming through, really, smashing the boundaries, it feels, and especially in sort of electronica and and it's really exciting. But again, I still feel I'm not getting the exposure that maybe they should. Do you think that's true? Do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think that there are sort of gratuitous exposure moments for them, but I don't know if it's very difficult, because I know that there was a time when, okay, a couple of years ago, when there were a few sort of women in electronica festivals, just women only, which again is that it's necessary is pretty disgusting. But one of the other disgusting things was that one of them, and I won't say who it was or anything, but a female friend of mine was involved with it, and the people running it were all men, and the women were offered a pittance. The funding was very good, but the fees involved were very, very low. And I've also heard of women doing remixes for free, whereas other guys get paid. It's a bit like, it's a privilege to be asked. And I just don't buy into that at all.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of situation you're faced with sometimes.
Yeah.
That's never spoken about much. I don't know any the people that it's happened to have ever spoken about it. So I've just mentioned it on their behalf, so to speak. So yeah, there's that kind of underworld going on, and some of the most interesting electronic music, I think, is that I find, maybe it's because I'm a woman, I don't know, that I find I really love is by women.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, as I say, it's not just knob twiddling. There's a lot more goes into it.
Yeah. It's much
There's
more layered
and feeling, and you can sense that it comes through, because I think they're not interested in the instruments so much and the technical whatever. I was going to use a naughty word then, but I won't. It's not about the technical aspect of it so much for women. They're fascinated by the technology and everything else, of course. I mean, it's just amazing, but it's an instrument to get across their music. It's music, and music is about your feelings, and of course there's no, I think with electronic music as well, and being so experimental, it doesn't come along with like a score so much as like you have to get in there and follow it. And for me, as a woman, that's more, like I said about being asked to do the film score for Delia film. That's more exciting, because I can't dictate what I didn't mean to go there, but actually this is much better. You sort of start off on something and you think this is good, and then it kind of like goes in a direction you just didn't expect.
Yeah.
And Delia talked about that, the whole thing of the way she worked was that although she scored things, which is something I never do, she couldn't predict 100% what she was going to get back. And that was what was so fascinating. And I think women in general, I think that's the way we live our lives, because we don't know what to expect from one minute to the next. We can sort of think about what we like to happen. And it's great when it does. But a lot of the time you sort of have to go left or right and dodge a bullet here and there. Not literally, but literally sometimes.
But that is fascinating, like you said, not knowing what you're going to get back. And that's how women. But I mean, have you got, as we're sort of I don't know, we're sort of wrapping up now, but I'd hate that. Have you got any advice? But what would you say to young females or, women starting off now?
I think one of the biggest things really is to be not afraid to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to think, and don't be mistaken into thinking that it's going to be easy, which a lot of women know it isn't, but you do fall into that, having to take the easy path because, like you said, you've got to earn a living and so on. But don't feel that you've failed.
Yeah.
Because you've got a huge battle, and you're never going to fail, even if you don't do what you set out to do. On the way there, you've probably discovered things that are going to be really useful to you in the present time or in the future. And I think that's what's happened to me as well. And to Delia, it happened to Delia. Things that happened in her past came through into her work. And I think you just have to, I think it sounds really cliche, but you just have to enjoy life and protect yourself, basically. Don't. It's very difficult to say because some women are in dire situations.
Yeah.
And I've been in bad situations myself, but I never think of myself as being, I've always thought there are people worse off than me. So I've been glad to help when I could, even if it's just a shoulder to cry on or in some way help them get out of what they're going through. And that's not just women.
Yeah.
It's everyone that's come into my life that have hit really difficult, dark times. Even now, and you just have to be there for people and not sort of go off and just think about yourself.
Yeah.
Because the world is a really cruel place. But protect yourself and enjoy what you're going to do, and just accept that there's going to be diversions here, there, and everywhere, but it's all going to be great.
Yeah.
That's what I've always thought. It's all on the way to somewhere fantastic. And there are those fantastic moments, and without going through the other stuff, you never reach them,
Yeah. But that's what I mean when I was saying about you're selfless. Your work to me is selfless. It feels you put yourself in positions you don't, you absorb yourself into something you want to make work about. You come at it from the inside sort of out. And that is, art is about, I think it is about connections. It is about, where does that stop, I suppose? It, like I'm saying, about connections on stage, about exchanges of energy. I suppose you do share that with your fans, your viewers, and I think that is what I'm trying to say is hard where do you draw the line on that in a way, as
I don't think you can put yourself out there with a line across, like those stage barriers when you're on doing a gig. I always found those weird because they're always like about 12 foot from the stage, and you think, where is everybody? Oh, they're over there. Okay. It was one of the things is like small gigs are really nice because you can feel people. They're all there. The energies, you can sense it. And it's like when we played in Manchester in, God, I keep thinking, it was 2019. I've lost the year of 2020 like everybody else. So last year was always 2019. And that was amazing, I just loved it, the atmosphere and feeling the happiness that you can share with people by just creating something that has a connection with them. That's a lovely feeling.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing my work, I don't sort of think, right, what can I do that makes people think that, I went through that. I just going through people that going through thoughts that have crossed my mind lately and upset me or made me happy or made me think that, that's a really serious situation in the world or with a friend. And it's about that shared experience. All our work, with me and Chris, mine on my own and his, it's all about a shared experience. And I think when it does connect with people, that's a wonderful, magical moment. And that's the payoff time, if you like.
Yeah.
And you don't get that. I mean, with Chris and Cosey, when we did all that work, we didn't get the payoff, or even from TG we did at the time. But with Chris and Cosey, we were very, like on the periphery of everything, because we kept changing our style and everything. Never cashed in on, all the rhythms and trance and stuff like that. We just moved on to something more interesting for us. So when you go to and do a gig where people are listening to Chris and Cosey stuff from like 20, 30 years ago, and they're loving it, it's the kind of feeling you just can't express. It's just like a starburst inside, that's like everybody's sharing in the room.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful feeling.
And I think music does that in a way that I don't know what other art does in a way, really gives to people, doesn't it? It connects with memories, it connects with emotion, it's time travel, it's
a physical thing, and it's something that every person in the room at a gig experiences in their own way. And then on top of that, they've got the bonus that everyone else in the room, they're feeding off the same kind of wonderful energy. So it becomes like this huge, like, dome of whatever, of joy. It's fantastic physical thing, music. You don't get it in any other, I don't think you get the same kind of effect anywhere else. It's probably why I went into music and why I loved it so much from a young age.
I just want to, because it's that thing that everyone says, success. What do what would you say success is, for you? And I know people have asked me before in interviews, and what do you deem a success? And I go, I never even really think about, have you been a success? What does that mean? It feels.
No, I don't, because by the time I've done something, I don't know about you, and it's out there, I'm already onto something else.
Yeah.
So, like with you, you're probably on your next script or something by the time someone's writing about what you've done as a success.
Yeah. Well, there's an active sort of saying, you're only as good as your last job. So that's, it's gone, it's done. You never sit and go, oh, I was really good in that, or or people thought I was really good in that, or got good reviews. You just sort of, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's only when you have to do, and even when you're doing it, you don't know really what people are saying about it, unless it's lethal to read. And what do reviews mean anyway? They're nonsense. You know what I mean? Good or bad, it's subjective.
Do you not read them then?
Well, I do sometimes after the effect. Usually if somebody said you've had some really bad ones, and then I read them and have a laugh.
Yeah, they're the best ones for press releases, aren't they?
Oh, just like...
I'll use that sentence. Yeah, I think one was mine was, she sounds like she's singing into a jam jar. I loved that one. Oh, well, we should use that in one of the press releases from Cosey.
Well, I
think that was for, not October Love Song, but it's for Roundabout Then,
It's funny, isn't it? What you look at, I've actually got a book in the downstairs loo, and it's Diana Rigg, and it's called No Turn Unstoned, and it's all really bad reviews, and it makes you feel so much better, because you think, God, they got a really bad review for that, and that's been lauded as a great, and you read all these actors with terrible. I mean, I've had shocking. I mean, my favourite is that I look like a bombastic lozenge. Bombastic lozenge, dressed like I just stepped out of a Slovakian funeral parlour. And I can still remember it.
The living being, but as an object, a lozenge. Yeah. I'm a jam jar. Not anything else living or.
But I noticed my worst reviews, and the reviews that started to attack the way I looked, came when I sort of hit middle age, when I sort of hit late 30s, early 40s. I went, this is a new technique now. They come for you.
Looking her age.
Yeah, your looks. I was like, I don't care. You can sound the ugliest thing that ever strode the earth, as long as you think I'm a good actor. Or what I'm doing's all right. I thought, why would that bother me? If you think, I had short hair, I did a play at the Royal Court and I had very short hair. And every reviewer, even the women, picked up the fact I had short hair. Like it was some weird, like you couldn't be an actress. And this was only about 8 years ago. And I was like, we're back in the 50s. What's going on? But,
You never sort of see in reviews of men's music or anything else. They don't really talk about how they look or anything.
No, we still, don't we? Women's appearance, that's still, especially in journalism, any kind of criticism, they'll still go for what a woman's wearing, won't they? You know.
Yeah, I know. But even when you mention it and you criticise people for doing that, it doesn't go anywhere.
No. The Dealey Derbyshire film, is there a streaming site that?
I think it's going to be on the BBC at some point.
Brilliant.
But when it is, I'll be tweeting about it. I'm just waiting for the nod, really.
Great.
So a number of people have asked me, because it was just BFI where you could go, and when the BFI festival was on, that you could see it. But I think it'll be on the BBC at some point.
Brilliant.
Soon, I think, this year.
I'm looking forward to that. I've not seen it yet. I missed it. So I'm gutted. Yeah. So no, I'm really looking forward to that. Well done, Caroline. That's bloody brilliant. Oh, I've sworn now. And the book, your book, still, you've got to. Yeah, I'm sure most people have read it who are tuning in, but
yeah, it's still, I still hear from people that have just read it, which is lovely, and yeah, it's still going out there doing really well, which is fantastic. And and the film's next, which is
Cosey goes to Hollywood.
Butterfly moments, isn't it?
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
Whole new experience for me.
Exciting. Fantastic.
I've got to meet loads of really interesting people. I am. Loads of lovely, lovely people.
Yeah. It's just going to be, what an experience. But fabulous. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. Bye.